everyone. Great to see you all out there. It's 11:01. I think I'm going to go ahead and get started with the introductions because we have a lot of exciting content we want to get through today, and we'll let a few more folks trickle in. My name is Marissa Momars. I work in communications for both Transition US and the Post-Carbon Institute. Thanks for joining us for the second in our series of community resilience chats, this one on power from the people, or community clean power. It's an honor and an inspiration to be with so many of you working to get us off of fossil fuels and to take back control of our energy supply. We're lucky to have with us today two community clean power visionaries and entrepreneurs, Lynn Benander of Coop Power and Lyle Estill of Piedmont Biofuels. Lyle Estill is an expert on small-scale biofuels as well as a leading thinker and writer on the new economy. He's founder of Piedmont Biofuels, a community-scale biodiesel producer which collects fats, oils, and greases from the region, converts them into biodiesel fuel, which it then provides to its 400-member cooperative. Lyle is also author of Biodiesel Power, The Passion, People, and Politics of the Next Renewable Fuel. Small is Possible, Life in a Local Economy, and Industrial Evolution, Local Solutions for a Low-Carbon Future, as well as publisher of the Energy blog. Lynn Benander is a community entrepreneur, president and CEO of Coop Power, a 450-member-owned renewable energy cooperative in New York and New England, which emphasizes local and regional organizing to build a multi-class, multiracial movement for a sustainable and just energy future. Lynn has worked since 1996 with membership groups in New England and New York representing more than 2 million people to develop sustainable energy resources in the Northeast based on a community ownership model. As manager of Coop Power, Lynn has started the development of 5 solar installation businesses, a multi-family commercial building energy services company, and the development of affordable, sustainable energy projects and services for Coop Power's members and supporters. Community Resilience Chats are a joint project between the Post-Carbon Institute, Transition US, and Chelsea Green Publishing, one piece of our respective efforts to redesign and relocalize our food, energy, and economic systems. Post-Carbon Institute is a small but mighty think tank. Much of our recent work has focused on combating industry hype and exposing the dangers of fracking and extreme energy. Those of you who are clean power entrepreneurs by day and fractivists by night will want to pick up a copy of our newest book, Snake Oil, by Richard Heinberg. Post-Carbon Institute also runs the resilience.org website, home to a robust library of articles and resources on community resilience, as well as an interactive map to connect with local resilience efforts in your area. Transition US is the national hub of the international transition movement, a network of grassroots organizers in 1,200 communities in 43 countries who are doing the hard work to transition away from fossil fuels. I'm sure there are some transitioners with us today. It's always a pleasure. It's an especially exciting moment for all of us because Rob Hopkins, founder of the Transition Movement and Post-Carbon Institute Fellow, is making his first and probably only visit to the U.S. this October to make the case for investing in local action. To learn more about Rob's tour and whether he will be speaking in a city near you, or to connect with the transition initiative in your area, visit transitionus.org. Chelsea Green is an independent worker-owned green publishing company who we're grateful to partner with to publish the series of community resilience guides, Local Dollars, Local Cents, Rebuilding the Food Shed, and Power from the People, and for offering a 35% discount on the Power from the People book for everyone participating in today's webinar. You will receive that code at the end of the webinar. Today we're going to start with brief presentations from both Lyle and Lynn about their journeys into community clean power, then pose a few questions that we received in advance of the webinar, and then we will open it up to Q&A to all of you, and plan to wrap up by 12:15. If you have questions as we go, please enter them in the question box on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and we will respond to them as time allows. And now, over to you, Lyle, to get us started.
All right, thanks, Marissa.
Sure.
All right, so as Marissa indicated, I'm with Piedmont Biofuels in Pittsboro, North Carolina. We're a small town of about 3,500, and we're outside of the Research Triangle Park, which is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill in the Piedmont of our state, in between the ocean and the mountains. Our story begins with deep frying turkeys. So it's a southern culinary delicacy. And when you're done deep frying a turkey, you're left with 4 or 5 gallons of used cooking oil. And when you dump that cooking oil in the woods, you notice that it still has a lot of good energy left in it. It attracts the bugs and the dogs and the vermin of all kinds. And so I started recycling it into biodiesel fuel and putting that biodiesel into my tractor. This was back around 2002. Rachel jumped in and we created a very small biodiesel operation in the backyard, and I think that we were sort of chronically out of fuel. When we got our first 10 gallons to separate and look good, there were 6 people standing around clapping, so everybody got about 1.5 gallons to go home on. We progressed. We moved into Pittsboro, North Carolina, where we bought an old abandoned industrial park, and we renamed it Lorax Lane and went into commercial production. We built a 1 million gallon per year biodiesel plant, which is where I still work today. Again, as Marissa said, we collect fats, oils, and greases from about 50 miles from the plant, and we aggregate them and get the water and the chunks out and then turn it into high-quality biodiesel fuel. We didn't really have a plan. We didn't really know what we were doing. We just kind of jumped off the bridge. We knew a lot about biodiesel. We didn't really know a lot about the renewable energy space. We didn't really know a lot about raising money and so on, or what it would take to build a chemical plant of this kind. But we went ahead and did it anyway. We just kind of jumped. There was a period there where Piedmont Biofuels were sort of rock stars. This is a drawing that was done of Rachel, Leaf, and myself. We were the 3 founders of Piedmont Biofuels, and back in 2002, biofuels were going to save the world, and we became rock stars because of our effort. Shortly after that, it became very clear that big biofuels can be evil, and we went from being sexy to evil. This is when we decided, when the industry decided to sort of burn down the rainforest and plant oil palm trees all in a row. And this is when the United Nations accused the makers of biofuels of being, saying they should all be charged with crimes against humanity. So we were sexy for a moment there, and then we were evil, and now we're back to, I think, just being obscure and maybe confused. This is a look at our plant. We use the 2 buildings closest and have a fair bit of solar, thermal, and PV installed. One of the things that we got to learn along the way is, you know, when you're making fuel, you think it's about the BTUs and you think it's about the tankage and the head pressures and all of the technical things that we have to challenge us, when in fact it's actually just about the people that want to run around on this different fuel. And this seems to be a lesson that we get to learn over and over at Piedmont. We have spawned a couple of sustainable farms over time, and you know, when you're farming, you think it's about getting rid of the deer pressure, or you think it's about irrigation systems, or you think about soil conditions, when in fact it's about the people that are interested in eating the kind of food that you're producing. So we'll often feed a fair number of people in the yard at Piedmont Biofuels. We've got an interesting solar double cropping array over one of our fields. It's the same thing that we get to learn here when you're installing solar. You think it's about inverters and electrons and kilowatts and so on, when in fact it's really just about the community that is looking for clean solar energy. We've done a lot of policy work. We do free tours every Sunday afternoon, and we have had senators and politicians come by, and outreach and education is a big part of our mission. But again, at the end of the day, we find that it's just about the people that come on tour. We have thousands of visitors each year, that are interested in learning more about it. And that's my story about Piedmont Biofuels. Take it away, Lynn.
All right. And I think you can see my screen now. And get geared up here. So Co-op Power started in 2002, where we had a big conversation where we involved community leaders from communities across New England and New York in a conversation based on the question, as the electric industry is deregulating, how do we create a place where consumers can have a voice in the energy that they use and produce, and who owns it, and how is that going to, how can that work to benefit consumers and communities? And so that conversation went on for about 2 years and involved hundreds of community leaders representing millions of people. And we designed Co-op Power together in that process. And these were the basic ideas that were underlying the development of Co-op Power, that we wanted to be inclusive. We wanted to include people from all classes and all races. We wanted to make sure that our tent was big enough so there was a seat for everybody. We were focused on justice. We wanted to make sure that the energy that we produced wasn't just about wealthy white folks in their homes, but we wanted to make sure that it was available to everybody. We wanted to be locally based. Our conclusion was, with a lot of research, that energy was such a big industry to be able to get the buying power that we needed, to be able to offer real discounts and affordability and get into jobs and economic development projects, that it needed to be based locally but organized regionally. So we're organized as a regional network of local communities, where to join, those local communities have to be as committed to the success of the other communities in our network as they are to their own success. But local, all decisions about what happens in a local area happen at the local table. We wanted it to be healthy. We wanted to make sure that what we did supported a healthy environment in each of the communities where we were. We wanted to be sustainable. We like to cooperate with businesses that might be competing with us in other scenarios, but we work a lot in energy efficiency, and we have relationships with all kinds of other energy efficiency companies in our regions where we work. We want to make sure that we're kind of radically cooperating and really questioning the whole competitive marketplace idea. And we believe that who owns it matters. So community ownership is a core tenet of what we do. And let's see, our recipe for justice, health, and sustainability is we build multi-class, multiracial communities ready to take action together. And then with that base in a local community, we build community-owned sustainable energy businesses with local capital, local jobs to serve local needs. And that's what we've been doing. We really believe that who owns it matters, that one of the first projects we started was a biodiesel plant that we're still working on developing. And our first conclusion was it didn't matter who owned it. The members just wanted a biodiesel plant. And we had a venture capital firm come in 2005 to partner with us. But within 6 months, it became clear that we were going to lose none of those core values were going to come through at the end. And so we walked away from that opportunity to build our biodiesel plant then. And no one's regretted that decision, because we really want to be able to retain those core values, and it's okay to wait 10 years. Maybe if we'd known it was going to be 10 years, we wouldn't have made the same decision, but I think we probably would have. These are the ingredients for community-owned sustainable energy resources. We start with powerful community outreach and participatory planning. We use successful replicable models and provide technical support to make that happen. We start with a good location and a great business plan, and then we raise money from the community members, grants, investors, and loans. If people in the community, if we can raise the money from grants, say, we wouldn't want to build that business because it wouldn't have the rooting in the local community that it needed to be successful. So we really believe that that local ownership is really important. And does it work? Here's some examples that we have. We're building Northeast Biodiesel, and we're quite a ways down the road of putting that together. We built Energia, which is an energy efficiency business in Holyoke. We partnered with Nuestras Raíces, a local nonprofit in Holyoke, to put that company together. And now there's 30 staff. I think 75% of them are under 25 years old, and 75% of them are Latino, and they do multifamily and commercial energy efficiency work. We've helped to start 5 solar installation businesses. We work with a group doing energy efficiency. They were focused on restoring windows and building thermal window inserts. We've supported the development of 2 green electricians, and within Co-op Power, we've created a solar vendor network, residential energy efficiency services where we're in 30 to 40 homes a week. We have neighbor-to-neighbor programs that install solar hot water systems, and we have a community solar program where we've put 120 panels on the roof of a local food co-op in southern Vermont, and we're gearing up to do some more. And here's a picture of the food co-op where we have our solar array in southern Vermont. Here's a picture of the founding board of Energia when we were getting that one started. Here's a picture of the groundbreaking for our biodiesel plant where we were, I think we broke ground in 2006. And here's what we've built so far, where we've bought the processor and we've got the building up, and we're hoping to finish that up this year. And we're very excited because Co-op Power owns 75% of this $3.5 million project. It's, and over the 10 years, the investors have agreed to be bought out, and the staff will then own 30% of that business. And this is how Co-op Power works. Co-op Power members join. They pay in their member equity. They make loans. They pay for the products and services. And I'm following this tan circle around. That money goes in, and the Co-op Power Council in their local area receives that money and decides how that gets spent. And the members in return get their products and services. They get training for green jobs. They have education in their community and more control over the energy resources that they're using. And Co-op Power Council then invests that equity, the loans, creates businesses, which then create good green jobs, which produce the energy products and services, interest and dividends that go back in and get distributed out to the members. And so far we have 6 councils, and we have about 6 more who are interested in joining. We have councils in western Massachusetts, southern Vermont, the Boston area, and Worcester, Providence area. We have 455 members, thousands of supporters, hundreds of volunteers, 30 staff people. We've raised $300,000 in member equity, more than $1 million in member loans, $290,000 from local loan funds, and $830 in local investment. And that's mostly because we're multi-class. We have people of wealth sitting next to people with limited resources, making decisions about what they want to see in their communities, and then they work together to bring in the money to make that happen. Let's see, these are the kind of resources that our network of local councils brings to the table. We help to access community capital. We help to we provide technical assistance and expertise in energy efficiency and renewable energy. We have green job training programs, and we get grants to do more of that. We've developed resources for how to help communities build the kind of businesses they're most interested in. We have group purchasing programs. We have resources for doing community organizing and community planning. We have our neighbor-to-neighbor program where we have groups of people go in and build a a solar hot water system together or do energy efficiency, mostly air sealing together, and then resources for how to work together across class, across race in achieving things that we all care about most for our communities. These are the options that we've looked at for our homes and our communities, starting with energy efficiency, solar hot water, and biodiesel. Those are the most affordable and community accessible energy products that we could find, and they also make a tremendous impact on the environment. We've also looked at wind and biomass, geothermal, small hydro, and we do PV. The others we haven't done yet. And in our communities, we do community education, community biodiesel development with our biodiesel plant that we're hoping to have started up this year. We do conservation efficiency citywide and townwide. We partner with municipalities to help improve the buildings in their area. We've worked on district heating system development, but we haven't finished one. We haven't done one. But there are many of the communities in our network that are interested in those. We're also looking at community electric systems and community scale energy manufacturing. So let's see, one more. And this is a picture from our last annual meeting. And it's a place where, Coop Power is a place where people come to develop local solutions and share the expertise and wisdom that they develop working in their own community with other communities across our region. So thank you.
Yes, thank you both for sharing. That was incredibly insightful and inspirational to hear all of the resourcefulness and persistence you guys have employed to get from the turkey grease phase to these amazing complex projects that are actually creating jobs in your community. You both have very different models. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process of determining which power source, scale of production, and business model was the best fit for your community, and kind of the process of engaging other community stakeholders in that decision-making process. Any tips that you have for others who are looking at exploring this themselves? Maybe we could start with Lyle.
We didn't have a lot of broad stakeholder involvement when we started. We just kind of did it. And we started down at Central Carolina Community College, and when they threw us out because we had too much methanol, we moved to my backyard, and we became a co-op and moved into an abandoned trailer that one of our members had. And we've just been sort of cobbling it together and scaling it up as we go. We've got about 400 members of our cooperative. About half of those are restaurant partners that we get used cooking oil from, and the others are drivers. But you know, our intention was to make biodiesel, and the other stuff sort of incidentally happened on the side. We have a hydroponics project and the farms and the aquaponics and all that kind of stuff is, I would say it's more accidental than intentional.
What about the choice to go with biofuel versus solar or wind or any other energy source? Was it just because that was what you had available, that was what there was an excess of, and you wanted to make use of it?
I mean, yeah, it's probably because we're down here in North Carolina where we're still frying. Fat soils and greases are, North Carolina is a net exporter of fat soils and greases. So.
Great. How about you, Lynn?
Well, clearly we've had we've definitely started from the planning model to implementation, and both of them have great value. We would have made a lot more gallons of biodiesel than we've made now if we weren't planning so much. And the more we have learned about biodiesel, and we've, as Lyle described, they went from the rock star phase to the enemy of humanity, and we've gone through that too, and we're not even making any biodiesel. And so it's been interesting to try to sustain this effort through the peaks and valleys of public opinion about biodiesel, and the very limited understanding people have about the role of biodiesel in a sustainable future. And I think there is an important one, and clearly the members think that, but public opinion has been really shifting underneath us, and it's made us take, a couple of years off at a time from developing the biodiesel plant, because it's hard to raise money when, we were the public enemy. So anyway, it's really fun to be back in favor. Again, we're not at the rock star phase anymore, but it's keeping contracts for recycled oil when you're not producing any biodiesel or using those contracts at all. It's been quite an exciting adventure. But at some point, we'll be making 3.5 million gallons a year of biodiesel, and we'll be really excited to be at that stage. What's really fun is if we were a for-profit company, we would have been out of business a long time ago. But because this is a community venture, and all the money that's in there is very patient capital, we'll get done when we get done, and we don't have the threat of losing value that so many new businesses have, because they don't have patient capital. The bank comes in, sells off, the resources, and you're done. Well, we have a more secure business development model because we're using patient capital, and we just, work until it gets done. But because we have a lot of voices at the table, some things take longer. And because we have a lot of voices at the table and a lot of owners, banks don't really know what to do with us. So we don't really have the traditional sources of capital to lean on. But again, that's a blessing and a curse. It's taken longer. We have more people making decisions. We have more people who own it. But we're also incredibly resilient, and we're here for the long term, and we're going to build a plant that's going to be locally owned, we say, for generations. And so that's kind of exciting.
Wonderful. Well, you both have touched a little bit on some of your greatest challenges, but is there anything else you'd like to add about kind of what have been your biggest successes and your biggest stumbling points or challenges so far, and how did you navigate those? What kind of kept you going? It sounds like when a lot of it is community engagement, knowing that, it's a slow-moving process, but any tips for people who are about to enter this journey themselves?
I guess the one thing I would... Do you want to go, Lyle?
Go ahead, Lynn.
Well, the one thing I would say is I've learned so much from being a part of a multi-class, multi-race group. And I feel like our future, if anybody's concerned about sustainability, that having a just system, one that really shares resources fairly, is really critical. And if we continue to leave so many people out of our economic system and out of the green jobs revolution and out of the whole access to sustainable and clean energy, I think it's really a fundamental flaw in how our culture, how our society is set up. And I've learned so much in it. I'm amazed. If you have a group of very wealthy people, they all have what they need and they don't need to put money in together. If you have a group of really poor people, they need a lot, but they don't have any resources. If you have a multi-class group who's sitting at the table making decisions together about what's important, the needs are clear and the resources are available. So I think it's an exciting opportunity to really bring people together and live the kind of world that we want to live in the future. So I don't think anybody knows how to do it well, but I'd encourage us to keep trying and sharing what we've learned about what works there.
Thank you. That's a great message, and it really resonates with me. Lyle, any words of insight?
Well, if you're going into the biodiesel business in 2013, I would say have your feedstocks lined up. And the trick is to make sure, it's easy to build a plant. It's hard to feed it. And so that's one of the many lessons that we've learned along the way. I think that the industry tends to build more capacity that it can actually make over and over and over again. So start with your feedstocks, know what your capacity could be. Forget about petroleum consumption because that's going to dwarf whatever endeavor you're going into anyway.
People tend to start on the demand side, which is just dead wrong in this business. You have to start on the feedstock side. That would be probably the one salient bit of advice I would give someone who's going into biodiesel.
Great, thank you. Well, I would like to open it up to Q&A now to our participants. We have a few questions already lined up, but if you have more questions, please type them in the Q&A box on the bottom right-hand corner. One question from Josh, it looks like in Virginia, is can you discuss the combination of biochar and energy production? Are either of you proficient in biochar and would like to speak to that?
Yeah, I've been messing around on the outside of biochar for a while now, and we have our third version of a biochar retort under construction right now, and we're going to use it to heat some greenhouses. For people who are not familiar with biochar, it's about combusting things in the absence of oxygen. So you basically take off the heat and use that in something productive, and you're left with this char material. You take the char and pulverize it, and then add it back in. You charge it, add it back into the soil, and it becomes an interesting way to store more water in the soil, and also a way to act as a soil reef and as a soil amendment. So I'm a little suspicious of biochar. I think it feels very Wild West to me. It feels a lot like biodiesel back in 2002. I think there are a lot of specious claims, and it's like anything. There's no free lunch. People who are making biochar and then adding it to the soil and doing nothing with the heat are, in my view, misguided, since the process is maybe 80% heat, and I don't think we should be burning things to make soil additives. It doesn't make any sense. So if you've got an application where you need the heat, take the heat for that, and you end up with biochar as a co-product. And so I think that we'll be in the biochar business 1 year from today, but it's going to be a learning curve.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
There's a biochar project in Amherst in Belchertown near us, Massachusetts, and many of our members are involved in that, and I have biochar in my garden, and part of the whole experiment with how to make it work and how to understand its environmental value. But I think it's again one important piece of the puzzle.
Great. Okay, well, this question is from Jack, wondering how do you avoid competing with the neighboring businesses? How do you practicalize the radical cooperation that you're talking about?
So if you have two people in a room, they can cooperate with each other or they can compete with each other. It's just, basic stance. So if you have any two businesses, they can compete or cooperate. I'll give you an example of where most of our revenue comes from doing energy efficiency work. And so we could compete with all the other energy efficiency businesses, some of whom are owned and managed by members of Co-op Power, or we could cooperate with them. And so we choose to cooperate. So we run a green jobs training program that benefits all of them. Whenever they hire, they call us and say, I need another person for one of my crews, and we go into our network of people that we've trained or recruit new trainees, or they bring a trainee and say, can you put this one through the program? And then we bring that person through, we train them, and then we have grant money that pays for their first several weeks on the job. So the employers are really excited about that. We're looking at joint purchasing of cellulose together right now. We share our financials. We look at what are the best practices in energy efficiency. We've become a network that's really helping all of us to figure out how to work best with the utilities, how to do really high quality work. We have kind of a way of just sharing industry knowledge that helps everybody do a better job. So that's a clear example of where we could be just not talking to each other and trying to get work from each other and underbidding each other and not being very nice. And instead we're doing something that's really helping raise the bar in the whole industry. Is that helpful?
I think the trick is that, renewable energy at this moment in history is so small, and the job that lies ahead of us is so large that, the time to fight over how big is your piece of the pie is not here yet. So you could build a biodiesel plant on the other side of the fence from me, and all of our combined production still wouldn't go anywhere near creating enough fuel to power, say, North Carolina for a day. And therefore, we might as well get along and we might as well cooperate because we're all in this together.
Thank you. That's some really good perspective. Lynn, are you interested in talking a little bit about financing community solar as a cooperative model?
There are some groups out there that are doing pretty exciting things around the country that we're kind of watching, what they're learning. We know how to do a project with one owner that can use the tax credit, and then we can, it's just so complicated, it's hard to answer. I'm trying to figure out what the 1-minute answer is to that. There are several financing streams for a solar project. One is the income from the electricity that's being sold. One is the income from tax credits, that you can take, which are 30% and more, including state tax credits of the whole project financing. There are renewable energy credits, so being able to take advantage of those REC sales. So there are, these income streams. In order to really get solar affordable, you have to be able to get all those income streams and then take advantage of any state incentives that are also available. So we've been, we put the food co-op project together, and the financing package was using a grant in lieu of tax credit that's no longer available, and using the state incentives from the state of Vermont, and then the Brattleboro Food Co-op pays us a lease fee for having that solar array on their roof. And they were really glad that they were building a new building. They were glad to not have to own that array right away and be able to get the benefits from it. So we raised the money with local loans from our members and built that project, and we're paying those loans back over time with the lease money coming in from the Brattleboro Food Co-op. And we could talk about it for a long, long time, but there are many models out there for how to it's really taking advantage of the tax credit now that grant in lieu of tax credits is no longer available. That's the big question, and there are several ways to do it.
In North Carolina, solar gets built through tax appetite as well. So we don't have a market for RECs, and in fact we're a regulated market for utilities, so you're only going to get like 3.9 cents a kilowatt hour, which is not really going to be able to pay for anything. But you can get 101% of your investment back through the tax code if you have the tax appetite. And we've been able to aggregate tax appetites in order to get solar projects built. So it's entirely possible. You just have to get creative. We're also not allowed to sell electricity in this state, and so we'll do things like build a solar rig and lease it for the amount of value of the electricity it's going to make. That way we don't get busted for selling electricity. We're just leasing for the amount of electricity it produces. You can do it. You just have to be creative.
Thank you. This next question is from Mark, who's wondering how you would bring some of these ideas and enterprises to a new area. It looks like he lives in Houston, so big oil capital. Do you have any advice on kind of raising awareness, seeing who's out there who might be, willing to work with you and bring together stakeholders? And how do you get started in a place that isn't already really into small-scale renewables?
Well, if it's biodiesel, I think the start point is the back alley where the dumpster is. Talk to the restaurant owners, find out what's happening to their used cooking oil. If it's being loaded into the shipping channel and sent to Europe and at a low value, then maybe you can step in and turn it into a biodiesel feedstock.
Great. Lynn, any thoughts?
We start with education and good old community organizing. So if you can find one other person who's interested in this, any related topic, so anything related to renewable energy or efficiency work, and start a conversation with them, and then each of you invites 2 more people to come, and if the conversation's interesting, they come back again, and then you each invite 1 more person to come, and you got 8 people, and you just grow it, and when there are 100 people interested, maybe you'll have a little conference event and have somebody come in on Skype or something to share a story about what they're doing somewhere else that might work in your community. But you just start small, and you keep keep building the circle of people who have shared values, shared commitment to doing something maybe in a different way. And if some of the people you recruit actually run membership organizations with similar values, then you can kind of jumpstart that and get 25 people or 50 people. Churches often have the value of stewarding the resources of the earth and being good stewards, and so we found that's a really good place. Other cooperatives have been a really good place for us to look for like-minded souls, and this is all just good community organizing, listening to what people care about, feeding those messages, that interest around your whole network, and listening to what resounds in the whole network, and then building on that, and just keep creating a shared vision for how to go forward, and then taking action on that. It's only about a 5-year process.
Those are great tips on kind of scouting out what sort of capital is available in your community, both human capital and what other resources are available to work with. Braulio is wondering, what are the toughest barriers to membership growth for an energy co-op? Would either of you like to speak to that?
In our case, we stick with what's called B100 fuel, 100% biodiesel. And 100% biodiesel is a little weird. So usually when you hear about biodiesel, it's in lower percentage blends. So our cooperative is a consumer co-op of people interested in driving around on B100, which means that they're a little bit fringe. And doubling, tripling, quadrupling that is, pretty slow going. The engine manufacturers are sort of against B100, and the regulatory policies are sort of against B100, and there's a lot of cards stacked against it. So it's fairly slow going to get our, a bunch of our production gets sold to oil companies and blended down to lower percentage blends, but our co-op is what drives around on the B100 stuff. And building distribution is the limiting factor, getting more locations, more convenient locations, which are super expensive, and deployed. That's one of our limits to growth.
And for us, I think for people who have experience with other cooperatives, it's a lot easier. For people who haven't owned anything before or become owners of, of a business and don't have experience with co-ops, it's a little bit more of a barrier. Why would I want to own, and what does that mean, and am I responsible for the bills if they don't get paid, and questions like that we get in low-income communities. And then just structuring our member equity, how it works. We have member equity shares that go from $50 for a lifetime membership up to $975. Most of our members are standard members paying $975. If you work full-time at Coop Power or one of the businesses we've started, it's $50. And we have buying groups for just fuel oil, that's for some kind of fuel, that's $250 for a lifetime membership, and then we have a low-income membership that's $500 that people can pay in over time at any rate per month that they want, as long as they keep the payment plan going. So we've found creative ways to make it accessible but still be able to raise a significant amount of equity. So we've been able to raise $300,000 using that membership structure. I think it's working well for us to be a multi-class co-op, but that was a barrier. We're trying to just figure out exactly what's the recipe and how does that feel to everybody, and does it feel fair? So anyway, those are some of the barriers we faced.
Great, thank you. Well, you've both spoken to this a little bit, and when we were just talking about some other barriers, but Stephen is wondering what are some of the legislative and regulatory barriers that you've encountered that have been most problematic at the local and state level, and how did you address those? I know here one of our partners who's working on gray water has done a lot of work to change state legislation to allow gray water, because that's what they had to do in order to get their work done. So could you talk about that a little bit?
So the policy layer is extremely slow to move. I think one of the great things about Greg's book that this is, ostensibly based on is it's just people doing it, not waiting for government. We've affected some policy changes over time, but the status quo is pretty entrenched in our ordinances and our laws and so on, and biodiesel has been a really horrific roller coaster ride from a policy perspective. So one moment you get a production credit, and the next moment that lapses, and the next moment, collecting the oil is, there's new restrictions imposed on it, and so on and so forth. So it's an unsettled policy area, biodiesel is, and I'm not sure America knows where it wants biodiesel in its energy mix. It seems sort of fickle and undecided. And so if you go around the country, it's sort of a patchwork quilt of different incentives here and programs there. And that makes it extremely hard. I mean, you have to have some intentional fortitude to be in this business. If someone is wanting to get in, you're going into an uncertain policy environment. And I mean, I would say that's actually true of all renewables, right? So the wind production tax credit expired last year, and the wind industry took a hit, and now it's coming back. You're trying to build capital assets that you need like a 25-year window on, and from a policy perspective, you only have until December 31st. It's fiendishly complex. Hate to say it.
Thank you. Lynn, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. The policy side of our work has been a little bit of a roller coaster. We sometimes get involved in things that our members really care about, but for the most part we've been just observers of the process, trying to keep up with monitoring, and most of the time that takes more resources than we have. We don't have any staff, any money to hire staff to really participate in the policy side. So we belong to organizations that track efficiency first, tracking the policy issues around energy efficiency, and we monitor what's happening at the National Biodiesel Board, just looking at what's happening with biodiesel. But we haven't had the resources to really get involved, although that's behind Co-op Power. We look at ourselves as members of this energy cooperative, that we are investors putting our money in, we're consumers buying the products, we're workers creating the products that we want to buy, and we're also voters who can shape the policy that we want, that will favor community ownership of these local resources and favor the, really work against the transfer of public wealth to private hands, which seems to be so prevalent in our culture now as the kind of way of doing business. We find that a lot of the laws that we have to work around within solar and energy efficiency are often designed to favor larger corporations that are involved. And so we favor direct ownership of solar, not the third-party ownership of solar that's so popular in our communities. And that's all because that's been allowed because of the regulations that have been voted in both at the state and federal level. So it's really complicated, and it would be just incredible to have a policy resource that's really focused on what's best for communities and for consumers, and we don't really have that kind of lobbying power that we need in order to make sure that those laws are enacted. So right now we're just kind of a speck on the tail of the dog getting whipped around, and it's a little overwhelming, as Lyle said, just to be able to do business development with policy that you can't count on. And that means only people with deep pockets can really easily be successful. And we're trying to kind of swim against that tide, and it's challenging. I just noticed Rick Casey asked a question. I'll play Marissa for a minute, asking Lyle, do you think biodiesel is pretty replicable in other regions? And what would be the primary parameters for success?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think it's highly replicable. The primary parameter is feedstocks. So the trick would be to go open up biodiesel production in an area where you can have or create a feedstock anomaly. So in the case of, say, Portland, Oregon, they've done that with policy. So they've created a successful biodiesel industry up there based on the price of canola oil. Also a successful biodiesel industry in Hawaii, which appears to be an anomaly in and of itself. The trick is to find feedstocks that are maybe somehow or another stranded. If there's any way for someone to get it to the Chicago Board of Trade, it's probably out of reach for your average biodiesel producer. And so replicate away, but do it with your feedstocks in hand first.
Lyle, here's another question for you. Have you ever looked into biomethane?
Yeah, I have. In fact, I think that bio-CNG is a really intriguing area right now. We've got wastewater treatment plants that are flaring, and flaring is a good thing because you'd rather have CO2 in the atmosphere than methane. But better yet would be to capture it, scrub it, and put it into the fleet. I'm astonished at how natural gas is gaining traction as an alternative fuel. And you know, you used to go to a Clean Cities meeting and there'd be 6 of us sitting at the table. Now there's 60, and every other guy, you know, this guy has a compressor to sell, and this guy has a fast fueling option, and so on. And the alternative fuels community is embracing natural gas as if it's an alternative fuel, kind of looking the other way in terms of how they get it and the damage that's done through fracking and the risk to our groundwater and so on. So natural gas is cheap right now, and it's plentiful, and the sort of gasoline gallon equivalent is extremely favorable from a payback standpoint. So Piedmont is currently looking at going into bio-CNG, and that would be wastewater treatment plant derived or landfill derived. I would say that if you're harnessing waste methane, it's a great idea. If you're going into the Earth's crust to extract it, we already know how that story goes. We need to, I would say, be very wary of that, and of course that is what we're doing. Okay, so now, Lynn, you want me to ask you a question. It's not fair here.
I'm just going down the list here. The next one I found was, are there any colleges teaching about alternative energy production? And how do, and I can't read the rest of it. It's from Josh from Virginia. And I'll just say that I know something about Massachusetts and Southern and Vermont colleges. And I know that there are the Massachusetts community colleges have implemented whole programs around preparing people to become renewable energy installers and energy efficiency technicians. And The programs have been very, very successful, and we've been able to place a lot of people, many people coming out of jobs in jobs within our networks, and I know that there are many, many other people getting jobs, across the state. So that's been exciting. And in Vermont, there are environmental studies programs, actually in Massachusetts too, and people are coming out with training in a wide range of energy efficiency, renewable energy topics, not so much as the technician level, which I find the community colleges have really done a great job with.
We're in the same boat here. Our Central Carolina Community College in Pittsburgh has got real active programs and everything from sustainable ag to green building to biofuels. And I would say that almost every university that you go to these days has got something going on, without a doubt. In fact, I would say the campuses are rapidly transforming, and sort of the students are hungry for the greening of their campuses, and they tend to often be the drivers that, either get cooking oil turned into biodiesel or get, wind installed. At UNC, the students did a self-imposed tax, raised their student fees to put it on renewable energy. And that's happening all over the place rapidly.
So I think it's time for the youth involvement question. How about you, Lyle?
Oh gosh, we work in conjunction with the Abundance Foundation, and the Abundance Foundation puts on kids tours and summer camps, and does a lot of outreach and education for the younger kids. I think we are looking forward to 200 8th graders coming on tour next week. Maybe looking forward, I'm not sure about that. And we're involved with the local schools and so on and so forth. And then actually the real young people that sort of energize our projects are the 20-somethings, the woofers and the folks that are out there searching, and they'll often stop by and spend some time with us interning, or spend some time in our communities inspiring us.
We've done school programs where we've gone in and had kids evaluate their school building, look at their home energy use, add up how many kilowatt hours and BTUs they're using at home, and figure out a plan for reducing their own family's energy use. We've done the green job training programs for high school kids as part of after-school programs, or out-of-school youth we've trained to get jobs in energy efficiency primarily, also some solar hot water installation. And we've had, Co-op Power's had a lot of people come and work for free. A member will give room and board, and they'll work here for kind of the woofing model. They'll work here for 9 months or 6 months, and sometimes just a month at a time, and those 20-somethings have really added a lot to who we are and what we do. So wide range.
Great, thank you. It's great to hear that. I think we will start wrapping up. I have a few more questions that seem kind of specific, so if you haven't had your question answered yet, you can shoot it to me in an email, marissa@postcarbon.org, and I can connect you with someone who can answer for you, either Lynn or Lyle or one of the other fellows or experts that we work with. And with that, I'd also like to give you all the discount code for the Power from the People book, which both Lynn and Lyle's projects are featured in, along with a lot of other amazing clean power projects, solar, wind, hydro, methane, all kinds of diverse, interesting, different projects. So you can get a taste of what's out there and what might be a good fit for your community. And that is.
I just want to jump in and say, if you're interested,
if you order it through the publisher, Kelsey Green.
I just want to say that if you haven't read that book, it's a fantastic book. I think if you're interested in this topic, you'll just get so many ideas. You'll come out inspired. In fact, it's a great study book if you have a group of people who are thinking maybe we want to do something. You know, read a chapter a week together and get together and talk about it. You'll come up with something, some action will emerge at the end. It's a good place to start.
Yeah, and I think resilience.org. I think resilience.org is another good place to start. You know, pop on, find the project near you, and go down and sit in.
Thank you for that.
Oh dear, we might have to close together too, Lyle.
All right. All right. Well, very good. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But Lynn, it's been nice talking to you and great questions. And thanks to Marissa and Desiree and all the people that work hard to put on this webinar stuff.
Yes, thank you so much, you guys, for putting this together. It was great to be here, and Lyle, it was fun to share a podium with you.
It was really nice working with you. And thank you all for joining us today.